Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Deep Dive Discography. I am joined today by Jillian from the London, Ontario punk band MVLL CRIMES. How are you, Jillian? Thank you so much for joining me today.
Doing great. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
I had the pleasure of seeing you guys play the Kill Room in Hamilton. It was an awesome show. You guys really stole that one. How would you describe MVLL CRIMES to the uninitiated? Because you guys aren't just a punk band, and our audience is also typically more of a metal audience, but I'm more of the hardcore guy. So we're trying to bring in some more people here. So how would you describe your band to a layman?
Hell yeah. We have been describing ourselves as post-hardcore, post-punk for a while. We kind of switch back and forth between the two, depending on the feel of the room. So that's served us really well. We haven't had anyone come up yet and be like, you're not a post-hardcore band. So take that as a good sign. We're definitely like, yeah. No one's challenged us on it, so we're going to stay the course. Definitely some no wave influences in there too. I think they come out. Yeah, if you're going to come check out MVLL CRIMES, you can expect us to play our hearts out. You know, you might dig it, you might not, but you'll probably laugh a time or two. You'll probably have a nice time.
It's actually so funny you mentioned that. So you guys' first EP, Bootlicker's Delight, I liked when I saw that album cover, I was like, that's so fucking funny. I love that. The album art on it is so hilarious. And that's actually one thing I was like, when I was listening back to it earlier today, I was like, man, I know it's not like comedy music by any stretch, but my God, this thing is so fucking hilarious. Like your song, Don't Be a Cop. I love that. We're like, there's only like 4 lyrics in that song, really. Just don't be a cop.
All you need, you know, the message is clear. You keep it simple, you keep it concise. Yeah, because this is Deep Dive Discography. Our first EP was actually called Roadside Attractions and featured this picture of a very old pioneer cemetery. Because yeah, we're fucking edgelords, but just to set the record straight. So Bootlicker's Delight is number 2. And thank you so much for the kind words about the album cover, because that is something I drew.
I was gonna ask, did you guys do that one yourself? That's so
Yes,
those who don't know, it is literally just a person on their knees in front of like a cop's boots with like heart in their eyes, and that's the part that killed me. I was like, that is so good.
Yeah, much appreciated. Much appreciated. There's a Wolverine cover, I think, back when Wolverine, like the comic book character, got his own original like sequential series of like him like kind of crouched with his claws out with someone in the foreground. So it's a bit of a wink to that, but we put our own spin on it.
Are you a comic fan?
I am. Before I do what I currently do, I worked in a comic book store for 7 years, 7 wonderful years.
No kidding. My God.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it was the best.
Yeah, I used to work at a record store, so I mean, like, it's basically just as nerdy, let's be quite honest.
You know what? Nerdy, truly, but also the community space you provide, man. Like some pals I have work at a record store here, and we have like the same regulars, you know, like people who used to come into Heroes Cards and Comics was the name of the shop I worked at. Yeah, same people that come in to both places. So we can like swap stories, which we've accrued about these people over the years. It's cool. You know, I'm really glad that the weirdos have places to go to fill up their days and like have welcoming people to chat with and like share a mutual interest.
Yeah, absolutely. So you guys have a new record coming out, is that right?
That is correct.
Why don't you tell me about this thing?
I'd love to. So we've got a record coming out called You Embarrass Me. Curse Blessings Records is putting that one out. Thank you a million times to Alan Doug over at CBR for taking a chance on MVLL CRIMES. We're releasing it next Friday, so a week from the day that this episode is being recorded, at Rum Runners here in London, Ontario, and we're thrilled. We're trying something a little bit different. We've got 3 bands playing on the show with us, one of whom is Casper Marcus, who is a hip-hop artist here, and we're thrilled. We're thrilled. I think it's going to be a really good night. Obviously, I'm very nervous about it, but very excited to have this record officially out as well.
Nervous about the record, as in like the reception of it?
Nervous specifically about the show. You know, we want people to turn out. We want people to turn up. And, you know, I think we recorded all these songs a year ago. So the recordings, as good as they are, in my humble opinion, in my humble and completely unbiased opinion,
Sure.
we play them even better live now. So that's a big thrill. And I think we're all so pleased with how the record itself came out. We're just really excited to share that with people and, you know, to get feedback on it to some degree. But yeah, it's a big deal for us to have this record coming out for sure.
Well, there's definitely a lot of anticipation, right? Like you spend all this time writing, recording, rehearsing, and by the time it's actually done, by the time the PR is out, it's like, oh my God, finally this chapter of my life, I can just kind of close it off. So there's always like this bittersweet symphony that happens right before you drop this thing, right?
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. You know, I think for me too, I am a person who really likes to have a project on the go. So when we get this album out, that means we can move to like phase 2, you know, we can start planning a tour. We can start looking into maybe doing some international shows, but the baby has to be born first. So September 9th is our due date, so to speak.
That's awesome.
Just to finish that metaphor up. Yeah.
No, I'm super thrilled to hear it. If it's anything like your previous efforts, we're gonna love it. And it's gonna be a weird thing to say, but like typically you don't see music when you listen to it, but because I've seen you guys play live and I know the energy you're talking about, I can't help but like picture your guys' live show when I listen to your recordings, because like the thing that I like about you guys is there's just like so much sass and like so much attitude. Like it really exudes like personality. And that's the thing that I really like about your overall sound. And don't get it twisted. I love super angry, like white dude style hardcore, like just like dudes yelling about shit. Like that's cool too. But
I like it too. You know, you're in good company here.
It's nice to have like a bit of like diversity in that regard. Like you guys don't really sound like anything else that's coming from the geographical area, which is like a huge breath of fresh air, honestly.
Oh, that's such a huge compliment. Thank you so much for that. You know, I cannot say enough about how talented the musicians in MVLL CRIMES are. Like guitar, bass, drums, they're so solid. Could not ask for anyone better. And I think something that really comes through in the songs that we write is all the different influences that we all pull from. So like our drummer, for instance, is a huge and of course I forget the name of the band as soon as I say those huges. Death Grips fan, huge right. Death Grips fan. And Lori is like kind of a Jill of all trades, played in like a Neil Young cover band at one point, and Pat's a pop punk hunk, you know, so we're drawn from everything.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, see, that's actually like what's really cool about it, is that like it's not very one note, but like I said, the attitude just like really shines through, and like a lot of different stuff. And I remember earlier you mentioned that, like, I think this was before I hit record, you mentioned like a lot of post-punk influence, and after you said that, I actually kind of hear it in retrospect, and I'm like thinking about it. Like you guys have like the spacey guitars and like, you know, kind of like that layer of ambience that you don't really get from typical hardcore.
Yeah. You know, I noticed this is the dynamic you have with Aaron as well, where one of you will make this really good point and then the other will be like, yeah, well said. I don't think I have anything to add to that. Yeah. You know,
yeah.
we like, I think it's important when you're in a band to make music that you yourself would enjoy listening to, right? I think that's one of the goals that we have set for ourselves, and something that we're trying to consistently do, you know? Like, I feel a little bashful when a Mall Crimes song comes on, you know, Spotify shuffle or whatever, but
Yeah.
you know, Don't Be a Cop is a pretty catchy song, and I'm proud of that.
Same as Scare and Karen. It's a banger, dude. It's certified banger. So like, you know, going even deeper than just like the music that you would want to listen to, I find a lot of bands, particularly on the local level, they falter in regards to what the aesthetic actually is about and like what the image is. And that's like so important to the actual overall package, where it almost like, if something is good but the image and the aesthetic are really really good too, it almost like what's the word, it elevates like the quality of the music, because you're not just getting sounds that sound good. Like, there are plenty of bands that just sound good but they don't really, you know, look that cool, or the album art's like, like so like whatever. But what it's cool about you guys is like, it's so cohesive. Like, everything is just like really really well thought out, and everything just, it's like your aesthetic sounds like your music. And that's something that's really really, again, refreshing to see, right?
Yeah, I appreciate that so much. You know, the way that I go about a collaborative project is, for better or for worse, I want the input of everyone involved. So every decision in terms of the aesthetic is run by everyone in the band. I try to get everyone's feedback, and you know, and I think that's been really conducive to creating stuff that fits well with the music that we're also creating.
Yeah. So am I correct, were you guys a band before the pandemic? Like, you played one or two shows in 2019, am I right about that?
You're 100% right. We played one or two shows. Yeah, I think we played 4 shows, and then the pandemic happened.
Cool. Yeah, that's that's pretty real, man.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what'd you guys do about that? Because, like, you know, what a terrible trajectory, you guys. You know, you get all your friends together, you're making this stuff, you're like, yeah, people are really gonna like dig this, and then the world just suddenly stopped, and you're like, oh cool, I can't leave my house. So what did you guys do to circumvent that whole situation?
You know, I love my band members so much, and it's always really nice to just check in with them, just like hang out with them. More often than not, Mall Crimes band practices are like a fucking blast. We're all making each other laugh. So obviously there was like, when it was safe to do so, and we know we practice in a house, so provided, you know, all the members of that household and all the members of the band were comfortable like getting together, we got together as often as we could. And then something that really helped during the pandemic is the involvement of Curse Blessings Records. We sort of started courting, is the word I've been using, Curse Blessings during that time, and they were like,
Yeah.
we want to like put something out for you, and we were like, well, we'll keep writing some new music then. There's a song on this upcoming record called Foods I Don't Eat, which is all about foods I don't eat, that began as a jam. We were all like, oh fuck, we need to show Al something. So we just, I think Pat, who plays guitar, recorded it on his phone, and we just like sent off this like incredibly rough demo to Al, and he thankfully was into it. Meant to be, he liked it. So
Okay, so real quick, that song "Foods I Don't Like to Eat," did you play that live?
Yeah. Oh yeah, we play it live. Yeah.
Because those lyrics spoke to me.
Oh yeah.
I remember I was like standing on top of the skateboard. I was like, dude, she's naming all these foods I would like totally muck right now. Like, what's happening here?
That's the reaction I get. I get so often. And that Kill Room show is so funny. There was someone in the audience who kept making eye contact with me while I was singing that song, and just like kept doing this. I was like, that's really funny. That's really funny that this is your reaction to this song, you know?
Like, man, I like to eat.
Yep.
It's just
You
what
gotta
it
eat.
is.
Food is fuel. You know what I mean? You gotta eat.
So here's a trick question for you. You say you love your bandmates. Would you would you break quarantine to jam if you're bandmates?
Oh,
Would you break the law to jam? Because you guys,
oh
commit mall
yeah,
crimes. So I mean, like,
that's right. But what is a mall crime? Sounds like a pretty soft crime, if you
uh,
ask me.
yeah, shoplifting or smoking weed in the bathroom.
Hell
Skateboarding.
yeah. Skateboarding indoors or in the
It,
parking lot.
I actually have committed a mall crime. One time in high school, I did actually smoke weed in a mall bathroom. Didn't get caught.
It's incredible.
Kept that secret to my grave until just now. Now the internet
Until just
knows
now.
it. So yeah.
Gonna have to report you. I am actually a police informant. You'd
Oh,
never
you're a
guess,
cop?
right? No, that fucking rules. Good for you. Definitely doing the like the Dark Lord's work there with that
Yeah.
one.
Like, I don't
Would you
smoke
do
the
it
devil's
again?
lettuce anymore, but there was a time. Put the high in high school, okay? Like,
There we go. There
many
we
moons ago.
go.
So if you don't mind me asking, one thing I always like to ask about, because the hardcore scene just does not operate in the same regard to the metal scene. And that's actually something I've experienced lately where like I've spent so much time in the metal scene. The older I got, I was like, you know what? I'm good. I get the point. I got my fill. And I started levitating more towards like the deathcore and hardcore and the punk scene, especially like in recent times. What's it like to be a female front person, in the punk scene? Because I know like the dynamic is so different, because that's, it's easy for me to say, right? Like, I'm a dude playing in bands, so I don't really think much about that, but it's kind of cool to hear from someone who is in a band like yourself to, hear what that experience is like.
Totally, I guess because it's the only experience I have, my input will be pretty limited, but I mean, I have a blast. It's great being in a hardcore band, or at least like, a post-hardcore band, as it were, with like another woman. Our bass player Lori is also female, so it's cool to have someone who kind of gets it when you're like, I want to wear makeup tonight, and that needs to be factored into our setup time, and to have someone else be like, yeah, you do. Yeah, do that. You're going to feel better if you do that, if that's what you want to do. I wonder, well, I don't really wonder. Like, we have kind of a silly band. Like, we have silly, funny lyrics, and they are sung by me pretty angrily. So, I've been very lucky so far. I haven't had anyone be like a fucking creep or a piece of shit, and I am looking forward to it remaining that way. But I know it's like, that's not universal. I know how incredibly privileged I am in that regard, like it gets really fucked up out there. Like, I've seen non-dudes, be spoken over. You hear all these fucking stories about non-dudes just being treated like a coat rack, or just being like undermined in really pointless ways, like going to rent gear comes to mind right away. And I don't know what the appropriate route is to address that, because it's a systemic thing. But I don't know. I guess like being an asshole has worked okay so far. I guess I'll stick to that gun for now until a better route opens up.
Yeah, I think about that stuff a lot, honestly. I remember when I was with my previous band, we are having a meeting one time, albeit it was a metal band, and I said, hey guys, like, how do you think we could appeal to more women? And just crickets.
Yeah.
Like crickets. And that's something I think about like a lot to this day. For example, like I think it's so important because the tides of culture are changing in such a way, and like, hardcore is supposed to be more of a very inclusive genre. And I think as much as milestones happen, there's still like a lot of work to do. And I would like to see more like women players and, non-binary players in the scene and stuff
Hell
like
yeah.
that. And the reason I bring that up too is because there's a guy I have on my Instagram who's like, oh, post your anonymous, music hot takes. And a lot of people were kind of like saying that stuff. I'm assuming these posts were from like women or non-binary people saying like, yeah, like I don't feel very welcome in these places. I feel like they're very cliquey. And I'm like sitting here thinking like, okay, like just when I thought we were getting there. And my experience with this is like, I'm a BIPOC dude. Like I'm Arabic, but I'm kind of like white passing. So every so often someone will say some really fuck shit in front of me and I'll be like, I caught you. I'm incognito. Like you didn't know it.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's so fucking true though. I was like a couple years ago now, I was involved in this like diversity and inclusion thing at work at my like big boy office job or whatever. And I remember like very clearly speaking to upper management and being like, so the way white people talk when they think it's only other white people around is very different from when there's a BIPOC person in the room. And what are we going to do to address that? Like, are there any resources or any like light we can shed on this? Because I think it's in those instances where people are like, that thing I said that you really need to crack down on, right? So yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that, by the way.
Yeah, no, I just think it's so interesting. And like even most recently, I was doing photos for Municipal Waste in the Toronto show, right? And I'm standing in the photo pit waiting for them to go on. And I will never forget this anecdote because it just like it's burned in my mind's eye. It was like this really drunk dude like talking to a girl towards the front of the stage, and what I assume they were talking about from my eavesdropping experience was like, Municipal Waste had that one T-shirt where it's Donald Trump shooting his face.
I think I have seen that.
You've probably seen that shirt because it went around. It kind of got viral when they put that shirt out. So, anyways, the guy's saying like, oh yeah, but like that's who people voted for, blah blah blah, and I was thinking in my brain, busted. Like you may not realize how much of an asshole you sound like when you say stuff like that. And I could tell this poor woman, she was standing there like, oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself like, cringe, bro.
Yeah.
This is not a good time. As a spectator, I hated seeing that. But I think there's a lot of truth to that, right? Where it's like, you think hardcore is a pretty good way of like weeding people out, or like some of these genres that have like, imagery like that, or these bands that have imagery like that, you really think it would, but it doesn't, because some people kind of miss the point and just hear the really loud, exciting, angry thing, and you don't really think that much deeper about it. But Municipal Waste is pretty brave to do that in a relatively conservative scene. Like thrash metal's not like a chill environment. Like a lot of those dudes have some fucked opinions. So
yeah, there it is. You raised like just so lots of like very good points raised, may I just say. And I think that's so true. Yeah. I think a lot about that Six Pack song by Black Flag, and how on its surface, if you're just listening to it, you're not really paying attention to the lyrics, it just sounds like this party anthem, but it's actually just this like very satirical song making fun of drinking for the point of drinking. I completely agree. I think people see the volume and they see the anger, and they don't necessarily pick up on some of those more transgressive or some of those more radical things that are often presented in hardcore music, but like not universally, right? Like there's definitely,
course, yeah.
Like I don't know if I've seen one, but like party hardcore bands.
Yeah. Oh, they walk among us, I promise you.
Yeah.
You got a couple different flavors of hardcore these days. You have like more of the metalcore kind of stuff, which is all about like, I don't know, like planets and shit. Then you have like the gangster stuff, or not really gangster, but it's like the street stuff where it's all like graffiti block letters and stuff like that. then you have bands that are like trying to say something. It's like on one end of the spectrum, you do have the bands that are just like loud, angry world destruction music, and then you have like what's that, like propaganda on the other end of the spectrum, right? Where it's like they actually have something to say, whereas these guys, they just, you know, they didn't want to mosh and get drunk with their friends and smoke weed at the jam space. Like,
Totally.
just is what it is, you know.
Has its place, right? You know, if you're, I think the point where something gets crossed is when you're putting something out there and it's punching down, or it's taking away the enjoyment very deliberately from another group. And I think that is what needs to be examined. If you're just like, I like smoking weed, here's a song about smoking weed and how great it is, like, go off. That rules. Smoking weed is great.
Pretty
like,
cool.
It's pretty cool.
That's awesome. Do you have any local hardcore recommendations, or even not local recommendations? You know, because again, this is mostly primarily a metal audience, but I'm like the resident hardcore guy, so I gotta, like, you know, spread my gospel too. But I can name drop a bunch of like neckbeard ass bands, but I want to hear it from you because you probably have better taste than me. My taste is trash.
I don't know about that, man. Oh, okay. Well, that's great. Like, I look forward to, like, you know, you've got a new fan here. I look forward to your trash takes in future episodes.
Oh, they're coming. Don't you worry. I'll
be ready for them. Yeah, I guess, like, I'm going to just start with a few buds from the Curse Blessings roster. Maldita comes front to mind. We've had the pleasure of playing a few shows with them. It's like just a tight, crusty hardcore band. The lyrics are all sung in Spanish, which is kind of a nice change up. There's also the Slime, who are Toronto based.
Oh, they're so sick.
They're so sick, and they're like the loveliest people. Like, there's like the sweetest people. Like, their music is brutal and it's so mad, and Andy is such a great front person. And then, like, off stage, they're just like, oh, I haven't seen you in a while, let me give you a hug. And I love that. I love that shit. Maybe just, like, speaking more broadly of the bands that, like, I really love to listen to right now, there's this band that put out an EP, Takbir, like Takbir, and I believe it's all sung in Arabic. It's this super DIY, super underground band, and it's like illegal for them to make the music that they're making. So to get this record, you have to go to like this like distro that's located in like a different part of the world, and everyone is like anonymous in the band. It's so sick. It's so sick. Please do yourself a treat. Check them out. Takbir. I'm also like, they're not really a hardcore band, but I'm a huge Amyl and the Sniffers fan. Like, they can do no wrong in my mind. I think Amy Taylor is maybe one of the greatest front people ever. I saw them in May, and I like was just blown away. Just so good. There's Buggin'. There's Upchuck. Cool. Buggin' is cool as hell. Upchuck, I was saying, doing some really cool stuff. There's this band from South Korea called Slant, who are just like they're brutal. Like, it's so, the lyrics are recorded, or pardon me, the vocals are recorded so well. And this is something I have been paying attention to more and more because it applies to me. There are these excellent hardcore bands where the lead singer is like a woman or a non-binary person, and there's just something fucked about the way that they're recorded. Like,
hey, Jill, sorry, I'm going to cut you off for a sec. I have to pause. I have to stop the recording real quick because Zoom is about to yell at me.
Got it.
We'll be right back.
I'll be here. Yeah.
All right, we are back with Jillian from Mole Crimes. Before I so rudely cut her off because Zoom was about to rudely cut us both off, and it's a huge disaster. I'm gonna interrupt your thought because I forgot what you were saying. I have a recommendation, a really good hardcore recommendation. Do you know the band the Callous Dowboys?
No, the Callous Dowboys. Okay.
Oh my god, I'm so happy I get to tell you about this. So they're from Texas. So the joke is obviously the Dallas Cowboys just reverse the letters of it. And it's like this really weird mathy, I guess you would call it hardcore at times kind of band. And they put out this record called Celebrity Therapist. And what's really cool about like the vibe of this band is they have like a violin player, and I think three of the women of the people in the band are women too. So it kind of like adds this really nice dynamic where they actually have like all these like layered vocal harmonies and stuff like that. And it's just like, it is the coolest thing. I was like listening to this like album on the car ride home, and I was like mind blown thoroughly. I was like, oh my God, this is like the greatest thing ever. I can't wait to tell somebody about this.
And it was me. It was me you told. Oh, I'm right. So thrilled. Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Okay, sweet. I'll check him out for sure.
And they did a really good, or the singer rather, he did a really good interview with like Finn McKenty on his podcast. So it kind of gives you like some insight on like, you know, where they're coming from. And so this guy apparently lived in like evangelical parts of Texas, and he grew up in like the church community, which I relate to because I got some really religious family in the States. So for me, I'm like, dude, this guy's like speaking my language. This motherfucker's spitting like like, I'm not sure if you come from that kind of background, from like the really churchy kind of background, but you will definitely get exposed to some like really bizarre stuff if you hang out in those circles.
Hell yeah. I was raised Catholic and a little bit more devout in Catholicism than I guess some of my peers at the time. Like, said grace before every meal, and church could not be missed every Sunday. Easter was like a big church fest. So was Christmas. So it's so nice to be an adult and not be doing that shit anymore, because holy fuck. Like, I hated it. I hated it so much. I became an altar server because I found church so boring that I was like, if I altar serve, I'll have stuff to do. It'll break up this hour and a half, make it go by way faster. So just nuts.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I had a kind of a similar upbringing where I did go to church like very often as a kid. I was confirmed, baptized, the whole shebang, said grace for many years. My God. And like, you know, I actually remember my most fucked up church story. I've never told this one on the internet before, so you might find this amusing, or I guess sad rather. But went to a church in a southern state. I won't say which one. Well, it was Nevada. And for those who don't know anything about Nevada and like Vegas, it's a red state. Their idea of church is more so like rich people, like white mega church kind of thing. So we're talking like, you know, congregations of like a couple hundred people and like, you know, all affluent families kind of deal. And so I had an uncle, rest in peace. He was really into the whole like, you know, God thing. So he was like, hey man, you should come to my Bible meeting. And I was just being nice. I was like, yeah, whatever, man, sure thing. And this must have been like 2016 or 17. I don't remember what year it was, but you know, buddy goes up, not my uncle, but he hung out with these guys so rough. But buddy goes up, the guy who's like leading the whole Bible study thing, and he was like, all right, here's our 32-week program. It is about how gays and transgenders are ruining the fabric of America. And I was just like, wow, I never knew this was like real life. Like, I was like in the basement of this church, very nice building, by the way, but I was like, I need to go out with some fresh air. This sucks. So I just got up and left. I was like, man, this is weird.
Oh, good fucking reaction to that. Well, that, you know, when people say things and it's just like, I feel like someone has just punched me in the stomach. I have like completely run out of air. That is just to be so blatant. I guess, like, you know, because my affiliation or my reference point is Catholicism, who are very like a little like less explicit in their bigotry. For something to just be so clearly like, you know what the issue is? These already oppressed groups. Yeah. They're the problem.
Right. The idea that was a gut punch. Speaking of which, like that, that pit of your stomach anxiety feeling. Yeah, I'm doing very
well. Yes.
Yeah, and like reliving that experience in my brain. I just had that experience. I'm like, dude, that was rough, man. My God, those guys sucked.
Yeah, like
Super not cool.
Oh, not like zero. Negative cool, actually.
Super not chill. Yeah.
That transfers over. You know, you do that shit, you're less cool the next thing you do, and on until you start doing some cool shit again.
Yeah, those kind of Bible meetings are for people who just like blast Jimmy Buffett and reverse into parking spaces. You know what I mean? Like, it's the least cool thing you could possibly do. Like the kind of guy who reverses into a parking spot at like a fucking Chipotle or something. Like,
yeah, but it's not good at it, right? Like, takes a bunch of tries to reverse. Like, hang on, I'm gonna get it, and then works themselves into like a really foul mood while they're doing it. Like, it worked last time.
And you know, like they're not paying attention because they're getting so road rage that they almost run into like the woman with the stroller.
Yep, exactly.
Malarkey in the parking lot at Trader Joe's.
Malarkey in the parky. Yep.
There you go. So yeah, that's my church experience. Needless to say, it didn't work out. Even as an edgelord young adult, I was like, wait a minute. Wait a minute. There's something fishy here.
Yeah. Holy moly. Yeah. I remember. Please go ahead.
I was gonna say, feel free to take that story to like your next function and be like, man, you don't believe this guy told me on the internet. Like,
you wouldn't believe. And it was a premiere. He'd never told the story on the internet before.
That's right.
He told me.
That's right. So you get to hear it before it even airs on the internet. So it's like you're like a couple like degrees before anyone else gets to hear it. So there you go.
We're bound now.
That's right. Bound. That's right.
I'm your familiar now. You're a witch. Congratulations.
That's right. I am very pagan these days. It's a new leaf on life I've turned, and couldn't be happier.
Love it. Love to hear it.
That's right.
If you're happy, internet's happy. You know what I mean?
Oh, that's not true. The internet's never happy. My God.
No, the internet is very sad. Very sad a lot of the time.
Hey, Jill, do you have an opinion on Pantera?
You know, you shouldn't really do a Nazi salute. Like, it's not gonna fly, man. Don't do that.
Yeah,
you can't really like charm your way out of that one.
I think that's a pretty good place to start, if I'm being frank. But I got something you might get a kick out of this one. So we did a video about Pantera's discography, right? And yeah, full disclosure, obviously I've listened to Pantera for many years, and the general consensus was like Pantera good, but Pantera icky. So this comment, I'm kind of used to reading people like talk shit about me online when it comes to like me expressing opinions. Like, I should just, you know. This is probably one of the better hate comments I've ever received in my lifetime. I'll read it to you. I think you might find this amusing. So the only comment on this video, because we're a podcast, the video version is like an afterthought, whatever. Only brain dead imbeciles with no critical thinking at all think Pantera was a racist band. It's laughable. 30 years of overwhelming evidence doesn't magically disappear in a drunken moment taken out of context. If you guys do a deep dive on Black Sabbath, we did, by the way, are you going to spend 20 minutes talking about the wife beating? We did. Last I checked, violently attacking someone is a crime. It still is. If you do Led Zeppelin, are you going to cover pedophiles? We would. Are you going to talk about the convicted rapist and Judas Priest? We definitely would. So, you know, I thought that was really cool.
For you... I have a question for you. Were you being generous in the grammar and spelling within that comment? Because the way I'm reading it in my mind is a bit messier than the way it came out.
Weird sentence structure. Let's just call it alternative grammar.
Alternative grammar. Okay, getting loose. That's okay. It's the internet, baby.
That's right. He's a little bit more in the alternative sphere of opinions, and I just thought that was I just thought it was a weird thing to say. It's like 30 years of overwhelming experience. Like, is that quantifiable? I didn't think like it was like since this band's been incepted, it's like, yeah, okay, guys, we had to compile all this evidence to prove that they're not racist. I don't know, man.
Yeah,
Pantera is a touchy subject, and every so often I'm at a hardcore show, I'll be like, hey, you like Pantera? And just see like what people say, because like, you know, the thing about Pantera that's really interesting is like how hardcore a lot of their songs are, and how like metalheads just like retcon anything that like has hardcore influence and like, no, it's just like straight metal, dude. Like, you know the band DRI?
Yeah,
Yeah, you know
yeah,
how like their logo is a dude like throwing down,
yeah,
and
yeah.
then like people just retcon that band into a metal band, and I'm like, shouldn't you guys like hate this band? Like the logo is literally a guy throwing down doing karate in the pit. Like that should be like your kryptonite. Like what the fuck is this? But then thrash metal guys love DRI. I don't know. I was thinking about that when I was going for a jog the other day, and I was like, that's so funny to me.
You know what? We got more in common than we think. You know
Oh,
what I
I
mean?
know.
Like I listening to metal is kind of a new leaf for me. It's not a genre which I've really opened myself to appropriately in the past, and I'm just like I'm having a blast. Like
Yeah.
it, you know, take it from me, a person who only recently started listening to metal. Pretty good stuff out there. You
There is
know?
some good metal. There is some good metal. There's also I'd say more cringe metal, but the metal I like is the good shit. And that's but
Yeah,
I have trash
exactly. Well,
taste.
me too.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. You know, one thing that I think is really interesting is like, okay, so metalcore, right? How that started off just basically being like metallic hardcore from like the New York scene, like, you know, bands like the Cro-Mags and stuff like that, were just essentially hardcore bands with like some metallic kind of riffing and stuff like that. And now we're in this weird impasse where like now that stuff's kind of nostalgic. So you have bands like, I don't know, like Mind Force, for example, or Drain, which are basically just like a resurgence of like that like 80s metalcore sound. And then you have bands like Knock Loose where they really just like divide that line, right? Where it's like, you know, they're kind of a metal band, but they're kind of a hardcore band. I know there's a lot of like, you know, tit for tat about how those scenes perceive those bands. I just think that's so interesting how we've kind of come to that. You know, like metal and hardcore used to be so separated, and now we're kind of mingling again.
Hell yeah. Yeah, and it's a wonderful thing. Like I think we're all the better for it. You know, when you said knocked loose, I immediately started thinking of Zulu, who I think identify as a power violence
Dude, they're
band,
so
which is
sick.
oh, they're so good. I saw Knock Loose and Zulu were playing the Wild Rose Hardcore Fest in Alberta, and I
Yeah.
have never wanted to be in Alberta more than that. But yeah, you know, just when you were talking about that and just like the very like siloed genres of music, such good music, and sometimes shitty music too, but let's focus on the good music, comes out of like these exchanges. Like I'm thinking of, this is really too bad I still have this in the shrink wrap, but I don't know if you've been listening to Soul Glow at all.
No, I don't know them actually.
It's like it's hardcore and rap, but it's
Oh, that's cool.
done perfectly, just done so well. And obviously I'm, you know, thinking of this very influential band in terms of power violence, Spaz, like I've been listening to, Sweating to the Oldies. I think Mall Crimes is gearing up to maybe do something a bit faster and angrier for our next release, whenever that will be.
Cool, cool.
Mm-hmm.
So incorporating a little bit of a metal sound, or just kind of like more faster kind of like riffs and stuff like that.
I think it would be really cool to have at least one song that sounded a bit like early Metallica. I've been listening to specifically the song For Whom the Bell Tolls a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it rips so hard. Like it's so fucking good, and it's almost 40 years old, you know. It's like when music is done at that level, it just never, it doesn't really seem to slow down, right? Like that song is as good now as it was when they recorded it. And I think that's really cool. And then King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard,
Yeah, they're
a few
dope.
years ago, they're so fucking good. They released this album that's very much an homage to thrash metal called Infest the Rat's Nest.
Yeah.
And it is so fucking good. It's so good. It's such a solid album. And honestly, that's kind of what kicked off my, what about this metal thing? This metal thing that everyone's always talking about.
You know, Jill, I'm gonna give you some pretty interesting spoilers. So so I'm just gonna piss on your parade so hard for a sec
Bring
because
it on! It's a piss parade now.
that's right. So Metallica, controversial band. I generally like them. Here's the thing about Metallica: they're both the greatest and the worst influence simultaneously. And here's the thing: the greatest part being because like they're really good songwriters, actually, and like they've released some god tier releases. But the thing that I hate Metallica for is they influenced generations of people to think that it's okay to write 8-minute long thrash metal songs. I need to, I need like fucking Joe Biden to go up there and be like, guys, like this is outlawed. Like you can't do this anymore. It's not healthy. It's not good. Like thrash metal needs to be 3.5 minutes, and that's maybe being a little generous. Like short and sweet, baby. And that's the worst part is like every thrash band after like And Justice for All is like, yeah, man, it needs to be like 9 minutes long. It needs to have like 5 guitar solos, and like you need to bore your audience to tears.
I just had this image of like this bipartisan moment in the United States where all of the Congress people come together and they're like, we don't agree on basically anything, up to and including showing the most basic amount of dignity for the people we supposedly represent. But one thing we can't agree on is no more 8-minute metal songs, okay? They gotta be high and tight.
That's right. But like it's gonna be like a whole thing. Like you have like all these conservative pundits on YouTube, but just be like, yeah, man, like why it's my fucking freedom. If I want to write like a 20-minute thrash metal song, what are you gonna do about it?
That's right.
It's just not gonna blow over.
Are at it again.
Yeah, the libs want to shorten my song. It's like, what if I want to start a 20-minute long libertarian themed thrash band? It's my goddamn freedom to do so. And I guess so, but I think the law needs to step in on this one and just get down to brass tacks. You know what I'm saying?
I do not like the police, but were a piece of legislation like this to come to be, the way that would be policed, like the type of crimes you might get charged for, like 5 guitar solos in a 3 guitar solo song.
Yeah, I think that's very bad. It's very dumb. You should not do that. That's coming from me, but I'm a lead player like a lot of the time. I like to noodle, but not so much these days, Jill. Let me tell you, my latest output, I have a project I've been working on a little bit longer than I care to admit, and one of my mission statements was to really just like not waste anyone's time. I think of like 6 songs, there might be 2 guitar solos. And then I realized how much better it is when I was listening to the new Callous Cowboys album. They had like their first ever guitar solo on it. I was like, okay, that was like so well earned. You guys had like 2 hours of music leading up to this, and eventually you got to the guitar solo. I'm like, you know what? That's good. That's in very good taste. Like,
cool.
Because speaking of bands of good guitar solos, I see you're wearing like a Turnstile shirt, and when you said I don't like the police, I thought you were talking about like Sting's band. I thought you're like, oh yeah, I mean, like, yeah, like Stuart Copeland's okay, but like, yeah, like, I wasn't gonna protest that opinion because the police are interesting, and I think about that a lot because Turnstile has a couple songs that are basically just the police repackaged.
Hell yeah. I love Turnstile.
Yeah, they're great.
Newer discovery for me too, I'll be honest, but they're a band, while I haven't shown them to my mom yet, I totally would. Like, of all the hardcore bands I'm aware of and that I listen to, probably there is one band that I would be comfortable showing to like an older generation, and Turnstile is it. And I think that's a very interesting position to hold. Like, specifically this album that they just put out, like, yeah, it just is so good. Like, there's just parts of it that are just like fun, easy listening, combined with these like excellent breakdowns, and like the quality of the lyrics is just so high. Fuck yeah, Turnstile.
You know, the thing that's cool about them too that I think is just brilliant is like they have really good pop sensibilities, and that's what I
That's it.
think separates them from the pack, right? Like, and I
Yeah.
think about this a lot, like the bands that are blowing up in recent times, like Lorna Shore, Spirit Box, and Turnstile are like three bands on top of my head that like seemingly overnight over the past year have just like propelled basically into stardom for for these genres of music. That's pretty wild stuff, especially like Lorna Shore, because like deathcore is like super inaccessible, but like they're like the biggest thing ever right now. And Spirit Box is a band that I'm going to be seeing in 2 weeks. I love Spirit Box, like one of my favorite. Do you know them by chance?
I don't, unfortunately.
Do you remember the band I Wrestled a Bear once? Does
You
that
know what?
sound familiar to you? I'm sorry, I just lost your audio there for a second. Are you still with us?
I am very much still with you. My
Okay, sorry. What
apologies
were
for
you
that.
saying about I wrestled a bear once? I missed. I just saw your lips move and just nothing.
Oh, you're on mute. I made a very dumb joke, which I cannot wait to say again. I don't know the band. I wrestled a bear once. The name sounds familiar, but that might just be because I have wrestled a bear once.
That's pretty dumb. I will
Yeah,
give you credit where it's due.
you're dumber now from hearing that, and I'm way dumber now because I've heard myself say it twice now.
Yeah, I thought you were cool, Jill, but this interview just nosedived. No,
Yeah, rip that mask right off.
the reason I bring up I wrestled a bear once is because they were huge in like the Warp Tour days, and like so like when you and I were teenagers, I was assuming you and I were in the same age group, but anyways, the singer and the guitar player of that band, Courtney and Mike, they're married and now they're in Spirit Box together. And anyways, like yeah, she's a really amazing like at like the death metal vocals and the growls and stuff, and like she also has an amazing clean singing voice, but like also the way they implement pop is kind of like Turnstile, and like it's just really well structured, really well thought out. They're more so on the pop side, like they're literally like pop music mixed with like metalcore, and it's brilliant. I think that's like what metal and like hardcore kind of needs to kind of get that shot in the arm, and I think that's what Turnstile has, like that kind of specialness.
Oh yeah, so well said. Yeah, I think they're going somewhere new, and I think people are picking up on that, and it's so nice to see like a heavier band getting their flowers, you know what I mean? Which late show did they perform live on? Was it Seth Meyers?
Yeah, I think it was
Like
one of
that's
those
nuts.
guys, one of those boomer comedians that like kind of
One
suck.
of those, yeah. Uh still
Yes,
very cool to see like
huge, huge.
that music being played on like such a mainstream platform, right? Like I think I teared up when Amyl and the Sniffers played Seth Meyers. I was like, oh, and
Dude,
then
I saw that. I was like,
turn to leave.
I was surprised by that too. I was like, damn, that's a deep cut, man. Like,
Yeah, they're just so good. They're just so good, and they're getting celebrated for being as good as they are. So
yeah, every so often people just kind of get, they're just desserts, right? Like, and yeah, that's such an interesting thing about like these particular kind of like subgenres, like subcultures within subcultures, right? And like I always like think about that a lot. I'm really into marketing quite a bit, and I always think about like how to overcome marketing challenges, right? And with the rise of like TikTok and stuff like that, like it really goes to show like the what's the word for it, the currency and like writing hooks. Like if you can think, like if you can like take any idea and like bring it down to like a 12-second hook that it's so like earwormy, like man, that's brilliant. I think like don't be a cop should be the next TikTok viral banger.
oh you. Yeah, that would rule. I haven't been on TikTok yet because I am old. I'm an old lady,
Oh, I
but
relate, man. Yeah.
you know what? I like it looks like it's pretty fun actually, so I might give it a try. I think it's really cool how there are some like indie songs, or even that like King Khan and the Barbecue Show song that's like almost like 20 years old that was really big on TikTok for a while. Like that rules, you know? That's like a Canadian legend, those guys.
That's right.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, you know, like obviously social media platforms are not democratic in any way, and their primary function is to sell you stuff, but it is really great when you kind of see these moments of music made in obscurity with like no marketing behind it being elevated and being listened to hundreds of thousands of times. I'm like, that's rad. Like, go for those bands. I hope it, you know, I hope they're able to like run with that, you know?
Oh yeah. Was that's the most interesting part I think about being a contemporary musician, really, is just like having to have those skills, right?
Yeah.
Like you have to wear so many hats. You have to have like somewhat of graphic design chops if you want to be self-sufficient. You gotta like know how to use a freaking camera. Like, you know, that's what I think what we're seeing now. We're hitting this weird apex as we go from like, let's say like, you know, download Bandcamp era way more into the streaming era, and like how you kind of use that. And what I'm noticing in my many observations that I make on a daily basis is a lot of bands are struggling with this part, where it's like, you know, a lot of bands rely on kind of more conservative release strategies, right? And one of the products I'm, you know, starting up with some of my guys, we're kind of talking about that, where it's like, I don't want to do physical releases. I don't think it's a good idea to spend money on CDs. Like, dude, like this is not where like the money's at. Like, if I could spend like $1,000 on printing 250 physical copies, or a really good music video and PR, I'm gonna take the PR, man, because I don't give a shit if you don't buy my plastic CD. That's bad for whales. Okay, like I'd rather you just stream it. Like let's use electricity instead of plastic. Like, for the love of God. Like,
Sure. I mean, like, yeah, yep. Well said. Totally. And there's all sorts of challenges with getting your stuff pressed into physical formats, you know, outside of just like the very valid environmental concern you raised. You know, there's a year backup at least if you want to get a record pressed right
I want
now.
to do
That's
vinyls.
just
Yeah, CDs
yeah,
are
that's just
easy because no one wants that shit.
You know, will tell you this. Those pals of mine I mentioned earlier who work at the record store, they're saying CD sales are going way up. It's kind of the new tape.
You're blowing my mind.
I know I am. It blew my mind too.
See, I was
And
like wondering about that because I worked at a record store too, and obviously we sold a hell of a lot of CDs. I kind of was working there like up until 2018 when I quit and went on tour, I think it was. So, anyways, it was a slightly different landscape than we have now, and I really wonder if that's just like nerd shit, like just kind of collector stuff, where it's like, because vinyl seems to be like way more hip, whereas CDs are in this weird like in between state where certain genres that stuff flourishes. Like if you're playing like old school death metal, you should probably print CDs. You'll probably sell them. But you know, if you're like trying to be like an internet ass metalcore band, or you know, like a hardcore band, like, dude, I've noticed a lot of hardcore bands when I try to follow them, they don't have Facebooks anymore.
Yeah.
That always throws me for a loop, because I'll like I was like listening to Tsunami the other day because I'm seeing them like next weekend, and I was like, man, I gotta follow them on social. Like, I forgot I didn't have them, and I was like, oh yeah, just Instagram, cool. This is the year we live in, man. Like, also you guys too, actually.
Oh yeah.
Because I try to tag.
Oh, can you believe that? Like a band with no Facebook page? That's nuts. And then
yeah, when I try to post photos and tag you guys, I was like, crap. They're one of those bands.
Yeah, you know, it's on the list. It's on my list of things to do. It's not a terrible idea to have a Facebook page, and you are certainly not the first person to ask about it. So, I'll get on it.
No. That's no pressure, by the way, because it's way more hip. Because now I'm thinking like, oh, that's way easier. It's one less thing you have to worry about. And also, like, too, like, if you want to look at my photography account, my Facebook, if you ever want to lurk it, ghost town. But my Instagram, there's stuff happening. Like, you know what I mean? It's just the only thing Facebook has over like any other social media really is events. Like,
oh yeah,
dude, it is such a good tool to have, like events and like, you know, blah blah blah. But an Instagram, just making events, just like kill Facebook, like old Yeller this thing, just finally do it. But we're dancing around it too much. So
yeah, it's circling the drain. Yeah, I agree, but as a platform for events, in terms of hearing about stuff, in terms of promoting your own, that serendipity by finding, yeah, can't beat Facebook. Still the best for that. You know, you can like whatever, post your poster that you made on Instagram, but if the first photo of your post doesn't have a person in it, then it doesn't get bumped.
no.
You know, algorithms aren't sentient, but the algorithm doesn't like it.
No, it's very clear about that. It's like, you better have a face. That's like social media, like etiquette 101. Always have pictures of faces. And my God, that's why I talk about the whole, like, you gotta have so many hats, man. Like, the amount of research it takes to like just like memorize this stuff is nauseating. And I don't blame, you know, most musicians don't even practice, let alone do additional research. Like, you know how hard it is to get like people to play their freaking instruments, let alone like read a book.
Well, you can't do it at the same time, you know.
No,
you gotta do one or the other.
I'll give you a life hack though.
Please do.
If you wanna get good simultaneously, here's what I used to do, right? I used to just put on my metronome, do guitar exercises, and just have marketing advice videos for music on YouTube while I'm just mindlessly sitting there just doing metronome practice. I'm like, okay, I'm learning and I'm getting the muscle memory down. So there you go. That's a free one. Brilliant. That'll be in my masterclass series about how to practice and be a modern day musician.
Beautiful. Sign me up.
Yeah, man. Yeah, before I let you go, I'm going to show you something real quick. Because I've had this thing for so long, and I've been very naughty lately. I bought this new guitar, and it's like, I've been playing it a lot, but I haven't had the excuse to post anything about it. And I might as well show somebody on the internet.
Yeah, please.
I got a new 7-string. It was like my little birthday present. It's hard to like angle this thing, but it's very pretty.
Beautiful. Yes, it is. Happy birthday, by the way.
Oh, thank you. I'm a slightly older man. I decided to buy a hipster millennial guitar that has fan frets because the future is now. So, you know, this is like future guitars.
Welcome to the 21st century. That rules. Yeah, I hope you have... For the
grams, dude.
For the grams, baby. Yeah, I bet you're going to have a lot of happy times with that guitar. You two, you look good together. It's a good match.
Thank you. I've been writing a lot on it, but I used to post a lot more guitar videos of me like doing solos and stuff, and I just fell off because I was like, God damn, I'm so bored of my life. I gotta do something else.
Yeah, that is a pretty universal experience, I think, is coming out of like, you know, the harshest part of the pandemic. Obviously, the pandemic isn't over yet. Just, you know,
feels like it.
Yeah. Yeah, I just before we end today, I wanted to thank you so much for all those wonderful photos you took of us.
Hey, no problem.
You know, that was so kind of you to come up, and you made us all look so cute. You caught all of our good sides. So, you know, I appreciate that so much. You could have made us look like shit.
Oh, trust me. Too hard. You should have seen the ones I deleted. No, sorry, you walked into that. I had to kind of go for it.
Of course.
That was actually my first experience doing a local show. I've only really done like bigger bands, honestly. Like, I'm used to being in the photo pit with professional lighting. So when I was in that dark room, I was like, oh no, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. So I had to like fuck with my camera settings. And so now these photos look a little, I guess the polite word to describe those photos is artsier. But I think next time around, you know what I'm saying? Where it's like, yeah, those are really interesting photos. They have some really interesting colors and blah, blah, blah. And they look really smooth and stuff. But my God, dude, that was like a surgery trying to like edit these things. Because when I was like, I went home immediately after the show when I started editing them. I was like sitting at my computer at like 11:30 at night. And I was like, oh, dear God. Oh, dear God. And I just got a scalpel to these things and I just made it happen. I'm working on my low light photography with my rookie gear. So, you know.
Oh, I wish you the best of that. Yeah, I love them. You know, it's something I've definitely had to get used to, just people wanting to take my picture in the time that I've been in this band. But yeah, they were great. I imagine it was an environment that had challenges more than it just being a little murky in terms of lighting. It was also about 100 degrees in there. So
Yeah. To be the more polite way of saying what you just said is the Kill Room's a very, how should we say, rustic venue.
Very much a DIY space.
Yeah,
yes.
like if you were
Yes.
looking up like apartments, it'd be like quaint, humble apartments. And that's the Kill
Close
Room.
to amenities. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Moments
There you
from
go.
downtown. Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Next to a bus stop. That's a selling point. It's really easy to get to.
Yeah. Shout out to the Kill Room though. Like they
I love it
are
there.
that was my first time there, and it was as steamy as it was. Had a blast. The people running that space were lovely. So nice. And thank you also to Genevieve. Shout out to Genevieve for putting us on that show.
Yeah. And that was a fantastic show. I need to get out of here before my band yells at me and decides I'm wasting everyone's time. Thank you so much for your time, Jill. Really looking forward to the new record. We should remind people when this thing is coming out and where can they find it. And you got to plug your socials if you do not mind.
Be happy to. So we've got a record, You Embarrass Me, coming out on September 9th. We have a record release show happening on September 9th in London at Rum Runners, but we have another one on September 17th at Handlebar. If you're able to make it out, that would be wonderful. No one turned away for lack of funds. You can pick up the record directly from Cursed Blessings Records. It's also available at a number of record stores around Toronto, including Sonic Boom. You can grab it here from Grooves Records, and you can pick it up from us at a show. You
Which I'll
also
encourage y'all to do.
Please come hear about the foods I don't eat. Yeah, please, if you like some of the things that I had to say, if you want to hear more about me wrestling that bear, please follow MVLL CRIMES on Instagram. That's MVLL CRIMES.
All right, Jill, thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute gas, and I hope to see you in the near future.
Likewise, Marcus, have a great practice. I hope no one yells at you.
No, they sure won't. I'll yell at them.
Okay, good. All right, there we go.
Thank you.
Bye.